Like what?
Let's play some hockey.
Tonight. Energetic, passionate, and savvy. Gouche Live. Brought to you by the good people at the Hockey News and Sports Illustrated. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the Gouche.
Welcome to another episode of Gouche Live right here at the bottom line. Again, a slap shot away from where the Toronto Maple Leafs will be taking on the NHL, and hockey is back, and we can't be more excited. Hey, this show is going to be brought to you by those good people at the Hockey News, of course, Sports Illustrated, and my producer, Jordan LaRoche, has done a great job bringing you all the facts and figures that you need to know for the Metropolitan Division. But before I get started on that, obviously, today is called Reconciliation Day in Canada. We all know what it means to us to be Canadians. We have to know our past, take care of our past, so we can have a better future. And I do want to do a shout out to my uncle, George R.D. Goulet, one of the top writers or authors on Louis Riel and, of course, the Métis. He's an elder in the Métis family. He is struggling with his health. Uncle George, please battle through it, kid. We need you. What you've done for not only the Indigenous, but also for the Métis throughout this nation is second to none. With my aunt, Terry, you two have done nothing but miraculous things to help us on a day like today, understanding our path with the Indigenous and the Métis. All right, it's hockey time. Yes, it is. Right here at the bottom line. There he is, right to me, the producer, Jordan LaRoche.
Hey, Gouche.
Listen, we are excited. I know it's Reconciliation Day, and of course, you as a young guy may not recall it all, but that's okay. We're going to learn. We're going to learn together.
All right.
What I think is really important about today is that we can reflect back on our history. You've been blessed by being able to travel and see the world and seeing some of the great spots around the world. But yet here in Canada, we're still struggling a little bit with our past, trying to figure out where we're at. What does it mean to you as a youngster?
That's a pretty low question, Gouche.
I don't want you to go too deep. But this has all just come out recently. It's not like It's not like we've had a long time to be able to think about this. Obviously, the reconciliation part comes when they found the residential schools and kind of changed the way we looked. You as a young Canadian didn't know anything about it, I would assume.
No.
Right? All of a sudden it's thrown at you. Are you questioning what's going on?
I mean, it surprised me, not really, when all this stuff started coming out. Like, obviously you want to think the best of your country, but I mean, that's just not really how the world really works right now. So, obviously, it's great that we're able to recognize it now and kind of do something to at least help towards it. But it is what it is. But I mean, I'm just glad that we can kind of look back on it and try and change the future.
Great answer, and we will do that. We'll do it all together. Hey, listen, it's hockey. It's the Metropolitan Division. We are so blessed to have a live studio audience. My good buddy, Mark Chamberlain, all the way from, I'm not sure where he's at. He is the world traveler. I call him the unit. I call him the sleuth. Or what do you call those guys? The stealth bomber. He just flies in. Didn't even know he was coming. And here he is. Mark Chamberlain, thank you for coming. Of course, we got Josie and Patrick all the way from Hanover. International Day.
Sorry, what?
International Day.
It is, I guess. Jeez.
International live audience. All right, let's get into why we're here. We're obviously here being at the bottom line to talk about the season. We've looked at, obviously, a couple of divisions. Now we're going to really open up and talk about the Metropolitan Division, which you're very close to, obviously, because the New York Rangers are in that division. But before we can go to the New York Rangers, because we're going to start from the bottom up, right?
Yep.
So last year, the Philadelphia Flyers, who some would say they were expected to be where they are, they needed to make some changes. They made changes. And one of their big acquisition that everybody's talking about is not even a player. It's Johnny T.
The other Johnny T.
I know you're going to go there.
I don't think these guys have really done anything to fix their situation at all right now. Tony DeAngelo, sure, he's a nice piece. He's not going to reinvent this franchise, and neither is Justin Braun for that matter.
Right. But that character, of course, Johnny Tortorella, and of course, Tony DeAngelo comes with some history.
Yep.
I think could that be an issue at all? Because and we've talked about it before, it's very hard on Daryl Sutter saying, we're just reprocessing these coaches. We're not really going outside of the boundaries and bringing in new faces. They've gone back to the past. with John Tortorella, who does have a history, both good and bad. One of the things that's crazy about him is that he's been on the press side. He's not really good with the media. Like, he's entertaining though. That you got to
Yeah.
admit.
Yeah, and granted, he wasn't really in the scrums and doing all that extra stuff. He was more just a talking head for I think it was TNT. But essentially, like, you have Tony D'Angelo and John Tortorella, who both have very strong personalities. Both are very outspoken and just everything that's going on in hockey. So, D'Angelo, everything that happened after New York and what kind of came out after his time with the Rangers, it's obviously not good. And that time he spent in Carolina, he kind of kept a low profile, just kept his head down, did what he had to do, and it benefited him. And it's the only reason I think he's still on an NHL team right now. So I think for D'Angelo, he's going to come into this Tortorella-led team, and someone just turned the lights on. Wayne, can you turn those off, please? But I was on the train of thought. I'm going to turn those lights back off.
That's all right. No, there. Hey, we got a light show. Eh? Are we at a disco?
I just totally threw me off.
Yeah, that's all right. Well, so as we go through this with the Torts story, I want to stay on that a little bit because we all know that Torts is also really tough on goaltenders. And we know we've got Hart, who is questionably a top-level goaltender. He has the potential to be there. He struggled a little bit over the last couple of years. Because Torts is really hard on goaltenders, do you think this is going to be a good thing for Hart, or is it going to be something Carter Hart may not be able to withstand all that, the head games, or, as I was talking about the Daryl Sutter story, I got off track there when they threw the lights on, the fact that Torts has been one of these guys that have recycled himself, but he has, and a lot of people are saying it, he's come to the modern game. That's the difference between an old coach and a coach that comes back into the NHL. He's changed with the times. A lot of coaches don't do that. Daryl Sutter did it, has done it. Look at where the Calgary Flames are. Now, can Torts do that? And if he can, that'll help Carter Hart, not hurt him.
Yeah, and the good thing with Tortorella was, I mean, look at the Rangers team he had and the Columbus team he had. The big similarities between those two teams were they were really solid defensively, and they always had good goaltending. Even though Torts may be tough on guys, the team still had great goaltending everywhere he went. So I don't think it's going to be an issue for Carter Hart. If anything, it's a test for him to see if he can really just kind of. Actually, I'm done with tests with Carter Hart. Actually, I think this is a big prove-it year for him.
Really?
I'm kind of flipped on a dime there.
That's
but
a good point. A lot of people do test him. He doesn't have any time.
It's getting to a point where, you know, it's becoming thin ice for him where, you know, he really has to kind of figure it out.
Well, there's some talks, Olympics, Team Canada representative, and just has never got there. Listen, before we leave the Philadelphia Flyers, of course, we'd be remiss not talking about who they brought in as far as players go. You've mentioned the Justin Braun situation. Obviously, it's who they lost. Keith Yandel, wasn't a surprise. Of course, Martin Jones is a formative goaltender. What do you think they're going to do there?
They did bring someone in. I just had it here.
That's
actually.
Okay.
Felix Sandstrom, a young guy they want to give a chance to. He's a 25-year-old goaltender. He's actually a year older than Carter Hart, but again, I have no issue giving that backup role to a younger guy.
All right, of course, you mentioned Kevin Hayes, James Van Riemsdyk, who we obviously like. They need to step it up a little bit, some of the young guns.
Yeah, they do have a few young guys on the roster, like guys like Cam York, Ronnie Allard, and some guys who really need to kind of take the next step up because that's what's going to be for the Philadelphia Flyers. I mean, you look at this roster right now; it's kind of broken. It's been through some really tough years, and I think they just got to kind of pack it in and look towards the future here.
Philadelphia Flyers. I got the colors on, of course. Let's think about this for a second as we leave the Philadelphia Flyers. Last in the division last year. I'm saying they're going to be last in the division again this year. But what are the percentages of them? I know you're a betting guy, and I guess the line you call it.
Yep.
What's the line for them ending up in first in this division?
It's a plus 5,900.
I'm going to put a couple bucks down.
That's basically impossible odds.
Yeah, maybe they'll make a trade at.
Yeah, but even then, they don't have a ton of cap space. They have $14 million tied up in Kevin Hayes and Trevor and James Van Riemsdyk.
All right, well, we'll see how that plays itself out. Then we're going to go to, obviously, the New Jersey Devils. They
Yep.
play your New York Rangers tonight in the exhibition preseason. This team is, again, one of those enigma teams. You know, everybody was waiting for the Devils to step up and start being the team of old. It's still got the loss of identity. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts?
They'll be better this year. They'll be much better this year, I think. You bring in, I just look at some of these additions: Eric Holla, Andres Palat, Simon Nemec, Vitek Vanacek, Brandon Smith.
Nothing's scaring me, though.
All those guys will add to this team that has a young Jack Hughes playing, who's going to keep getting better every year. So I think he's going to take a big step up this year. And then just give him more line mates. I mean, you give him, I can't remember who he was with last year for the life of me. Just for Brad, I can't remember the other guy, but
Nico Herscher?
no, it began with a K. It's escaping me, but
That's all right.
but they build out their depth with Eric Holla, Andres Palat, and then you fix the goaltending issue they had there. Vitek Vanacek, okay in Washington, didn't do too much there, but he gets a good opportunity to prove that he's a starter in this league with New Jersey. And then Brendan Smith is just a reliable bottom pairing guy.
Well, and that's key, right? Getting a goaltender. We'll know that's going to happen in Toronto here, of course. When a goaltender has an opportunity to prove themselves, sometimes they get complacent when they know that they're the starter and they don't have the opportunity, too much competition, of course. And it's a really key year for him. Before we leave it, of course, the PK Subban. Are you surprised that he retired? Are you surprised that the New Jersey Devils didn't offer him something up to end his career? He's still a very good hockey player and a good defenseman.
Yeah, there were some injuries towards the end of his career and just diminishing play. I mean, ever since he really got to New Jersey, and it could have been a mental thing as well, just being on a team that really didn't have many prospects at the time when he was there. Granted, I think that's changed this offseason, but you look at this team's decor, it's pretty good as is.
Yeah.
I mean, the first pairing with Adam Graves and Dougie Hamilton, that's probably as good as you're going to find a pairing in the NHL. And then it does fall up, but you still have Damon Severson. They got rid of Will Butcher a few years ago, but overall, this is a much better hockey team than it was last year.
So obviously 7th in the division last year. Are you thinking they're moving up?
I think they moved past Columbus.
Oh my God,
And the Islanders.
Jordan!
What?
It's a pretty good looking team in Columbus.
It's not.
Okay, well we're going to go to them next.
Yep. They made probably the biggest news this offseason.
Well, the biggest off news, of course, you know what? It was the biggest, but I think it was overblown by the Kachuk thing, especially for Calgary. Yeah. I think we have to say that. Johnny Gaudreau steps up and says he doesn't want to be in Calgary. He wants to move closer to his relatives, which he did, moving to Columbus. Who moves to Columbus? Obviously, I would not be going there. But Johnny Gaudreau is going to be an instant hit in that city. Yep. His style is fantastic. He is one of those people that can bring people out of their seats. So that's really important. And I'm really liking the fact that he's going to be with Patrick Laine. I think even if they don't start together, they're certainly going to have a very strong power play.
Yeah, and as it looks right now, that first line in Columbus is going to be Gaudreau, Boone Jenner, and Patrick Laine. Don't get me wrong, I love Boone Jenner as a player. He's not
the name.
He's not a first line center. He's that middle six guy who, granted, he's the captain of the team, but it's just that physical role, goes in the corners, plays that gritty game, which it might benefit these guys, but I think that those are the kind of players you need a true playmaker to kind of play with.
Well, and also I know in the notes that there's a big loss. Like they're bringing in Johnny Gaudreau, who is going to be an offensive juggernaut there, no question. But then they lost Bergstrom.
Yeah, and they lost in a trade to Vegas, who they essentially got nothing back for. And this was a move to essentially bring in Johnny Gaudreau. And while it's probably the right move, they do have a big gaping hole at center right now. And that's 60 points that you make up for with Gaudreau coming in. But overall, they're probably the better team with Gaudreau, so I can't really say too much about that. But Bjorkstrand is not a player you want to lose.
But I'll tell you what, also, the guy that I'm really looking forward to, we've watched him on the Olympics, the World Juniors, is Kent Johnson. I think he's going to step in, and you say he's going to be on the third line through camp. He does have an opportunity to prove his value and move up quickly. and I think they're needing him. If this team's going to go and advance and not be in behind the New Jersey Devils, he's going to be a key player.
Yeah, but it'd be interesting to see because like traditionally, whenever we've seen Ken Johnson, he's been a center, and right now he's skating on the wing, on the left wing with I have it here Cole Sillinger and Kirill Manchenko. But if you look at the left wing slot for the Columbus Blue Jackets right now, you have Johnny Gaudreau on the first line, Gustav Nyquist in the second line, and Ken Johnson on your third. It's going to be pretty hard for him to move up to try and overtake Gustav Nyquist's spot unless he moves to the center spot where he could even move out to play first line minutes.
Yeah, no question. Well, we're going to be looking for the Columbus Blue Jackets. You feel they're going to fall?
I think they kind of stay pat, maybe move up. But even then, it's the Islanders who are going to be right there, so it's going to be tough.
All right, you're listening to Gouche Live. I'm with my producer, Jordan LaRoche. We're talking Metropolitan Division. Let's move on to those New York Islanders. Of course, the addition, Alex Romanoff. Obviously, I really like him coming out of the Montreal Canadian organization. He had a bright future with the Canadians. They've had no major losses. Yep. That's not a huge addition to make this team feel like they're going to do anything earth-shattering. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and whenever we spoke about the Islanders last season, it was always kind of a why isn't this team doing well kind of thing. We never really found out really what was going wrong with this team because they have all the pieces. They have good goaltending. They have a great decor now, and granted, they could use a little more offense, but overall, I think this team was in the conference final a couple years ago. I think it's just like 2 kind of off years. I really think they can get back to that winning culture again.
Losing Char is going to hurt them a little bit. Another
defenseman
that's gone too early. No, I think he's 50. But let's talk about. You mentioned about the offense. Barzal needs some help.
Yeah,
like he's one of the top forwards in the league. He's kind of that guy that we don't talk enough about. His hands are sick. Like he's silky, and he just needs some support. Do you think they're going to go out and make a change at all?
I would if I were them, honestly. I mean, you have probably 5 or 6 decent defensemen that you could probably make a move for. And you have guys like Jean-Guillaume Pajot who still carry some value in their names. So I would like to see them make a move, but it's going to have to be an upgrade over what they have. And trying to find someone better than Josh Bailey, Brock Nelson right now, it's pretty tough.
Yeah, no question. And, of course, the line on them is plus 780.
It's better. I mean, those are realistic odds to win this division. So if you're a betting man and you want a good value pick, I don't know if I would take the Islanders, but it's an option. I think this next team might be a little more likely.
Jordan, tell the guy there he shouldn't park there. He's going to get a parking ticket. Hey, we're live.
You figure it out.
You let him figure it out? All right, Washington. There's a team that, I'll tell you what, Ovechkin's not getting any younger, but everybody's got their eyes on Ovechkin overtaking Gretzky. I say he will not. A lot of people believe that it's possible. So that in itself is going to be exciting to see what type of year he comes out with. A bunch of additions. Of course, I'm still kind of confused with the Darcy Kemper situation, not understanding why he's out of Colorado. I know that there were some people that may be thinking that, Colorado should have re-signed him. Obviously, the flip-flop of goaltenders. We'll talk about that in a second. The other additions don't really stand out and say, wow, this is a big, big change for this team.
But I don't think this team really needed a big change. I think that they really just needed to add some guys into their depth. And with 2 guys, with Connor Brown and Dylan Strome, they do exactly that. Connor Brown has top 6 experience with the Ottawa Senators. Dylan Strome, same thing in Chicago. So you add these 2 guys to your third line, and that just totally gives a boost, a jump to your forward group.
But Jordan, one of the things that I think is really important to understand about this team is Nicholas Backstrom's going to be out for a while, and he's one of the all-time best playmakers in the National Hockey League. Not only setting up Ovi a lot, but also on that power play, he is kind of the catalyst, the quarterback from it. That's going to be a huge loss, and nothing that they brought on the roster is going to be able to fit that role.
Yeah, so he won't miss the full season. He'll be back at some point during the year, but I mean, Evgeny Kuznetsov's kind of taken over that first line role with Alex Ovechkin and the power play a little bit as well.
That's a sweet player.
He's better player than Backstrom in my mind.
He's a guy.
Has a few more tools.
Yep.
Score the puck a little better. But at the same time, I just lost my notes here.
I wanted to ask you about the Mantha story. Like,
Yeah.
this is his year. I think this is the year where he can really step up and be the player that everybody wants to be. It's a very, very talented kid.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, he's been skating with Ovechkin and Mantha, Ovechkin and Kuznetsov. So Kuznetsov could be able to get in the puck, and all he has to do is just go to the net, wait for a rebound
Wait
off
for it to
Ovechkin.
happen. Yeah. Well, and of course, you're happy about this. Mr. Wilson, Tom Wilson will not be starting this season also.
Yeah, he's also injured. I think his return's going to be a little quicker than Backstrom's, so it won't be too long before he's back in the lineup. But I mean, even without those two guys, look at this top 9 group of forwards that they have. First line, we already mentioned Ovechkin, Kuznetsov, Mantha. Go to the second line, Connor Sheary, Lars Eller for now. Backstrom will take that center spot, and TJ Oshie. And then the third line, Connor McMichael, Dylan Strobe, and Connor Brown. I mean, that's just probably as good as you can find right now. And you have youth with Connor McMichael there, who's still going to keep getting better every year. Former London Knight too. Dylan Strome again. I really like that third line, and something the Rangers did last year to build out that bottom 6. And Washington's kind of taking the same approach here.
A lot of guys we forget about is TJ Oshie.
Yeah,
he's a talented hockey player.
He's pretty
love
good.
watching him. He's got again sick hands, and love watching him. The one thing that as we leave the Washington Capitals, they're thinking a plus 640. Do you think they're going to move up?
I mean, those aren't terrible odds to take. If you're looking for a value pick to win a division this year, I think Washington has a good chance to do it. I don't think Carolina is as strong as I originally thought they were going to be, and neither are the Rangers. So,
whoa, you just heard that. Spoiler.
But I do think it'll probably be the Rangers or Carolina at the top of the division, but they'll finish ahead of Pittsburgh. They'll finish ahead of some other teams.
Hey, as we leave, of course, the Washington Capitals, I read in the notes, I had to just clean my glasses to make sure I read it properly. You believe Kemper could be the answer for them to go to the Stanley Cup? I read it.
Yeah, I put it in there. I second guessed it a little bit after. I said I'll leave it in there for a bit, but no. I mean, this team gave a good test of Florida in the playoffs last year. A couple of bounces go the other way, and that's a very different series. So they add good, and that was the biggest thing I think where they kind of fell back was the depth up front. They answered that this offseason. You get a good goaltender in net. I think anything's possible with this team.
All right, Toronto Maple Leafs up against the Ottawa Senators tonight in Ottawa. We'll keep you informed tomorrow how that looks and how it plays out. And mentioning goaltenders, we will see. Matt Murray looked good against the Montreal Canadiens.
Yep.
Again, it was preseason, but I was at that game, and he looked very solid, even though it was just preseason. All right, a team that I believe has a really good opportunity. It's do or die, in my opinion, that this team needs to really prove itself. The Pittsburgh Penguins, additions with Jan Rutta. Drake Kajila, that's our buddy that actually scored a couple goals on you.
Yeah, he actually didn't score on me, I don't think.
Yeah, he scored one.
I don't think so.
I've got it on film.
We'll check.
Okay, we will do that. He did score a goal. Then, we pulled the goalie. But certainly, the Jeff Petrie needs a new place. I think that's going to be a good fit for him.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, it kind of brings him back to those peak Pittsburgh days where they had Justin Schultz on D. It's a very similar player in that slot, and you're 100% right with this team. It's do or die right now. They kind of go all in and re-sign Malkin, re-sign Chris Letang as well. So it's the rest of the team that's going to have to keep up with them because looking at this roster right now, you have some offense. The defense is okay, but I'm worried about the depth up front right now.
Well, and of course you lose Rodriguez. I'm kind of confused about that. I know we're always looking at it. Could it be cap space and that? But that's one kid I would have loved to have kept on that roster.
Yeah, but right now Pittsburgh's already almost $2 million over. And Rodriguez, I can't remember what he signed for in Colorado, but it was over
It was substantial enough for them to have to take a peek at, give up the goals that who's going to take over that offense.
Yeah, and Pittsburgh's kind of feeling all right, hoping that Jeff Carter can step up, take a bigger offensive role. Jason Zucker and Brian Rust, who also skated in that second line, they're really hoping that that unit can really take a big step up for them. And but Evan Rodriguez going to Colorado is a huge loss for this roster.
Anytime you have a kid named Crosby, who's no longer Sid the Kid. And anytime you pair him up with Malkin, and of course the Letang situation, I think if I'm not mistaken, they're the longest trio in sport right now that have stayed together for such a long time. I read
Probably.
it on. Yeah, I'll tell you what, you can't count them out. What about goaltending? That's always been one of the areas that the Pittsburgh Penguins, when they lost, obviously Fleury and the roller coaster, and now Matt Murray, who's obviously sitting in here in Toronto. What's their goaltender situation like in your mind?
They haven't really recovered since getting rid of Marc-Andre Fleury
Yeah.
all those years ago, or since getting rid of him. Sorry, but you got Tristan Jarry, you got Casey DeSmith. Tristan Jarry, it's going to be a roller coaster with him and net. You don't know what you're going to get on any given night. Some nights he'll be good, others he'll be mediocre. So you kind of got to take what you can get there. So for them this year, he's got to lock down the defensive zone, just make his life as easy for him as possible. Because if he ever goes down, Casey DeSmith is not a great backup goalie.
Bring on the spicy meatballs. All right, listen, they are in a situation at plus 300. Are they going to be better, or are they moving down in the standings in your mind?
I found it was interesting. They have better odds than the New York Rangers to win this division, even though the Rangers bullied them in the regular season, beat them out in the playoffs, and in my opinion, had a better offseason as well. So it's kind of weird to see that they are lower. But Pittsburgh, they're probably going to be the third spot in this division, maybe a wild card. It's probably not a good bet to pick on Pittsburgh to win this division.
They have Crosby. And anytime you have players like that, they're always given an extra shot. All right, let's move on to your favorite team, the New York Rangers. The blue, red, and white will be a team that a lot of people are thinking will be a Stanley Cup contender. Yes, but there are still talks out there, and I know you would love it. There's a guy named Kane that's going to be floating around who's going – that's a sweepstake. If he ends up, and we've said it before, maybe people get sick and tired of me saying it, but if he ends up in a New York Rangers jersey, I'm going to take away my thoughts of Carolina. I know you're already going to get me thinking differently, but that is a team. Adding just one more piece like that, this New York Rangers is a shoo-in for at least advancing to the Stanley Cup final and then maybe taking it.
They were right there last year, and it's you kind of take it with a grain of salt with how their offseason went, because they lost all the trade deadline moves they made. Andrew Kopp, Frank Vetrano, Tyler Mott, they let them all walk, but they bring in a second line center and mainly really depth guys. They didn't really look to fix those top lines like a lot of people expected they would, and that's because they're going to give a huge opportunity to their youth to try and make a big impact this year.
Vincent Trocheck's a nice addition.
Yeah,
you can't not like that.
No,
as a Ranger fan.
Oh, I love him. I've always loved Vincent Trocheck. A good two-way player. He's had a couple down years recently, but he's played with Gerard Gallant in Florida. Apparently they have like a bromance at this point. So hopefully they can kind of rekindle something, because when Trocheck was at the top of his game, he was a 70, 75-point player. I'd love to have that skating with Artemi Panarin.
Well, you've got the players like that can obviously advance them there. Listen, we didn't talk about a couple losses. I'm still really confused when we go back to this goaltender situation. Did Colorado see something that you and I, and of course Ron Duguay, didn't see in Georgiev?
I guess, because
we'll
quote Ron Duguay again.
Good practice goalie.
He's not even a beer league goalie.
Yeah, true. I think that's being a little bit harsh.
Maybe, but...
You know what's really cool? Ronnie Duguay is going to join us next week, and we'll ask him that question. Ron Duguay, of course, one of the all-time greatest New York Rangers, and of course, LA. He tells a lot of great stories. Talk to me about the goaltender situation. Of course, they have arguably top two goaltenders with Shesterkin. How much is the loss of Georgiev really going to mean to this team?
I mean, absolutely nothing, because you bring in Yaroslav Halak and Louis Domingue, who I think both are better than Georgiev. Domingue was a little bit of a question mark for me, why they brought him in. Actually, no, I think that we lost Keith Kincaid as well in the AHL, so he'll probably go down to the AHL. But we bring back Sammy Blais as well. So there's a lot of this team that's kind of coming back together this year.
I've heard they brought Domingue in for the menu. pregame
Right,
menu.
right.
That could be a thing. All right. So your thoughts on your Rangers? Is this a team that can handle the pressure? Because obviously a lot of people are already picking them to go farther than what they did last year. They had a great season. Obviously, it's going to depend on Lafreniere. I know that a lot of people have been hard on him. Number one pick overall. Man, he's got to be more offensively. But you could say last year with Kako and him, they were as good as they could be in the playoffs.
Yeah, in the playoffs, 100%. I mean, they won us games. They won us playoff series. And I was kind of excited to see that the Rangers didn't fill in those top 6 roles because Vitaly Kravtsov's going to get a good chance in that second line. For now, they're going to reunite that kid line on the third line with Phil Keedle, Kakko, and Lafreniere.
They look good.
They were Rangers' best line every game in the playoffs. So I'm excited to see a full year with them together. Even though they played together last year, just kind of seemed to come together in the playoffs. So maybe they had that sense of urgency again. And then you look at the defense as well. They're going with the all young guy. I was about to say rookie, but a young guy pairing with Braden Schneider and Zach Jones.
Don't forget, you've also got that kid named Adam Fox.
Yeah. On the first unit, but our third unit, I'm really excited for. Braden Schneider played 40 games last year. And fit in right off the bat with his first game, and Zach Jones as well. He's a little better with the puck, kind of a Cale Makar type, but a little smaller. So I'm excited to see this team come together.
All right, this could be a flip flop. This could be a flip flop when we now move on to the Carolina Hurricanes. You believe that the New York Rangers are in the 1-2 position.
Yep.
I don't think they're going to fall back any more than that unless somebody has a surprise season like a Pittsburgh Penguins organization. But the Carolina Hurricanes, I know we've talked about obviously Goudreau and the Matthew Tkachuk story and Huberdeau going to Calgary. I think underlining all of this, a big move for the Carolina Hurricanes is obviously the addition of Brent Burns. A little bit slower in the feet. I know how hard he works over the summer to get himself ready. I forgot to tell you this. I did speak to him last week, because I'm planning to go down and see him whenever you and I can get down to see him. He says, "Come on down," but he did say he feels he's in the best shape of his life. And has anybody seen he's like a military. He just works and works and works because he knows as he's getting older, he needs to put the time in. This guy puts the time in.
Yeah, and I'm excited for a full year with having Brent Burns healthy with the Carolina Hurricanes. And if you look at this decor right now, he's probably skating with Jacob Slavin, who is, in my mind, a very similar kind of player to a younger Brent Burns. Maybe when he's a little more defensive, but I think it's a perfect match for him and a perfect match for the Carolina Hurricanes.
Well, and he played with Vlasic a lot of times, and
Yeah.
I think that's a really good kind of comparison right there. Another addition that I think is really kind of interesting. I don't think he's starting up. Max Pacioretty.
Yeah,
if he gets healthy, man.
Yeah, he probably won't be starting the year, but no, he's a point per game player even at this age. And I think with this Carolina Hurricanes team, it's a very, very young roster. So bringing in a guy like Max Pacioretty, who he's kind of done it all in the NHL. He's had playoff success in Montreal, had playoff success with Vegas. I think he comes in and just gives this team a little bit of leadership, which this team hasn't really had yet.
Well, another great addition. I like him. I wish he would have stayed Winnipeg Jets. I know he's getting long in the tooth, but I'll tell you what, a very solid center, Paul Stastny.
Yeah, and probably a little more praise for his two-way game now, as more as playmaking and scoring ability like he was,
Right.
And he's going to play a pretty important role on this third line. I was looking at the lines earlier. I can't remember who's skating with him on the top of my head, but he's gonna get a regular shift.
Yep.
Maybe if you can find that offense again, it might just push them over the hill here.
Well, and he's the coach likes him. He's going to be one of those players that contributes a lot. Losing Max Domi, I don't think that's a big deal. Losing Trocheck may be, but the guy that I hate seeing going, obviously, a little bit of controversy out there, Ian Cole. When I heard that Brent Burns had signed, Brent Burns and Ian Cole were with me in Australia, I thought, wow, that is going to be a great pairing because Ian Cole's just a solid defenseman. Of course, that will not happen. Is there anybody else that really surprises you?
Not really, but just kind of looking at all the losses and everyone they brought back into this team. I took a look at. I kind of made up their lines earlier today. mean, you have just Barry Kotkaniemi as your second line center.
Yeah, you understand
It's
that.
I said multiple times over the summer. I think the Carolina Hurricanes are going to win the Stanley Cup. After doing more research today and just kind of thinking about it a little more, what I used to love about this Carolina Hurricanes team was the depth that they had up front, especially. But you lose a lot of that when you get rid of Max Domi, Vincent Trocheck, Nino Niederreiter, and just over the last year or so, the couple of guys that they've lost along the way. This team, I don't think that they'll take a huge step back, but maybe a little bit. I think they're a little closer to the Rangers than I originally thought they were going to be.
But I think Brendan Moore sees what he's got, knows what to do with it. I think Brent Burns is going to add a little bit of an offensive touch to that. I'm going to love this power play. But I want to go on the goaltender situation, of course. Anderson is at the top of his game, unfortunately, had an injury.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on this goaltending situation in Carolina? Because I think if there's going to be any area where they're going to be weak, I know you looked at the depth maybe on the forwards, but I think that may be covered up by the solid defensive play and the type of coaching they're going to get from Brendan Moore. It's the goaltending that I'm thinking that maybe if anybody goes down.
I don't think so, because Freddie Anderson was one of the best goalies in the NHL last year. And you have Antti Raanta, who, on top of that, has been one of the best backups in the NHL over the past five or so years. And even in the playoffs, when Freddie Anderson went down, Antti Raanta still won a lot of games for the Carolina Hurricanes. Goaltending is not going to be the issue with this team this year.
All right, listen, you've got them finishing first overall.
I think so.
What's the line on them?
They're a plus 175, which it's a pretty good bet. I'm never going to say it's a lock, but plus 175 for the Carolina Hurricanes to win this division. It looks pretty good.
They obviously didn't do the research you did, finding out that the depth may not be where it should be.
No, but if there's a big drop off in odds when you go to the second place team, which I think Vegas kind of thinks that the Carolina is a pretty heavy favorite, but I don't know. I think the Rangers, I think Washington can maybe give them a little scare.
All right, Jordan LaRoche, always doing a great job here as a producer of Gouche Live, and of course the locker room, your show in the practice squad. I want to ask you this question just before we let you go. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
We obviously saw what went on last night
Yeah.
with the Miami Dolphins. I'm concerned, and what I'm concerned about is we've worked tirelessly. You've been through the concussion protocols. You know how much I do to kind of educate people on the cause, effect, and consequences of this injury. We try and tell everybody, take care of yourself, take care of your players. These are forget them as assets as for your team. They're actually human beings. And seeing what went on last night, what's going to go on with the National Football League? Roger Goodell was in the crowd watching this mess play out. It was all on that game.
Yeah.
And Tui, we don't know how severe it is. It looks really bad. You know when somebody's hurt and their fingers locked, there's something going on in the body. I'm concerned that this isn't just, and I think one of the guys, as Michael's I think it was one of the.
Al Michaels?
Yeah. No, not Al Michaels.
It's the Amazon crew.
Right.
It's a weird crew on Thursday.
Made a statement. Thank God it's only a concussion. Like, come on, honestly. Have we not learned? We've got parents and kids watching these games, and we're making light of it. It's not just a concussion. Look and see and understand there are people dying with the disease CTE, which is created by overhits. And that one, he was only 4 days out of a serious concussion.
And that first concussion, you saw him get up, start to run, and then his knees just buckled. And I knew right away it was probably concussion. You can see the way his head hit the ground there as well. But I mean neither hit was a dirty hit by any means.
No.
But it's just one of those things where you get that whiplash effect. And I mean the fact that he's out there 4 days after getting that initial impact, it's really scary. I give my prayers to Tua Tagovailoa. I really hope he steps on a football field again.
Now the last question for you on this part. You've been concussed. You know what it's like. Your judgment, your movement, your ability to see the play happening slows, obviously, when you've suffered a concussion. Could that have been any play of this, him not being able to get out of that particular situation because he was still having ill effects from the concussion?
I probably, because actually, it's weird because Tua is a lefty and the guy kind of grabbed him from behind. So I don't know, because if anything, the old lineman kind of blew his coverage a little bit.
Yeah.
But then again, it's not Tua's fault. It's not the defenseman's fault.
No.
It's just a good football play.
It's the fault of the NFL and, of course, the Miami Dolphins for having him in that situation in the first place. Thanks, Jordan.
Thanks, Gouche.
All right, wrapping it up here at, of course, the bottom line at 22 Front Street. Come on down. I'll tell you what, every Leafs game, home game, book a table because it is absolutely jammed here. I know that Jordan is maybe picking the Carolina Hurricanes to falter a little bit because of the depth. I still believe this is one of those teams that Brendan Moore will find a way to make this team have a better season than last year. And I'm just waiting to see what Brent Burns does in the circle after the game's done. He's going to be entertainment pure. Hey, thank you for joining us here, of course, on Gouche Live. Don't forget, we're at the locker room at the bottom line. Please come and check it out. This has been brought to you by those good people at the Hockey News and, of course, Sports Illustrated.
You've been listening to Gouche Live with your host, Kerry Goulet, better known as The Gouche, brought to you by the Hockey News and Sports Illustrated.